Hey everybody, welcome back to a different sort of video talking about the hero of heroes, Ben 10, but as a LEGO video game. With the most recent announcement of Ben 10 coming to Fortnite and a LEGO variant of Ben 10 coming to LEGO Fortnite, that got me thinking whether or not we should actually receive a LEGO Ben 10 video game. And with the Ben 10 fandom stronger than ever with a plethora of projects on the horizon like a brand new comic, a fan video game, and also the ending of 5 years later, it would make logical sense to capitalize on the character's popularity, especially considering how big the Ben 10 fandom has gotten. While the character was planned to be a part of the failed title that was LEGO Dimensions, with LEGO not doing a lot of original IPs, I think now would be a perfect time, especially considering fans have been clamoring for a LEGO Ben 10 set for forever, and we could get one if the game was made. While there'll probably be some issues when it comes to the character's rights and getting them into a LEGO video game, because obviously money does talk, but arguably Ben 10 works very well in the idea of LEGO considering his power set, and the amount of fan mods for this concept in other LEGO games does actually prove this. And a LEGO Ben 10 game could celebrate the legacy of the character, from fan projects to just the TV shows as a whole, very similar to LEGO Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, or LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, or other LEGO games as a whole, especially for the abilities of each alien and character. And speaking of characters, there are a plethora of characters that you could have in this game outside of Ben 10's aliens, and the core trio that were a part of the core building blocks of Ben 10, pun definitely intended. So what characters would I add for this LEGO Ben 10 video game? Obviously, you would have the different variants of Ben Tennyson himself, obviously, but I would handle him a little bit differently, pulling a little bit from two characters in LEGO Dimensions, Doctor Who, and also Finn from Adventure Time, which I know that doesn't make much sense, but I will explain why. I'm specifically choosing these characters for inspiration for Ben 10. A major reason why I chose these two specific characters out of any other character in the LEGO fandom on a gameplay front and character front to take inspiration from for a LEGO Ben 10 is because these two particular characters in LEGO Dimensions have one unique gameplay aspect to their character that does fit with the character of Ben. With Doctor Who, when he does die, he regenerates into a different version of the Doctor. And when he does regenerate, his design, voice, and character do change, and certain aspects of his gameplay do change as well. While a lot of it does stay the same, certain gameplay changes are made to go with this different variant of the Doctor who would have some different abilities. And I thought this idea would work perfectly for a character like Ben, who has had different aliens in his different iterations, and also skills in his human form as well. So I wanted to borrow a little bit of this gameplay concept from Doctor Who in LEGO Dimensions and apply it to Ben in some ways, axing the idea of changing into a different variant of Ben when you die, but keeping the idea that your gameplay and certain attributes do change when you are playing a different version of Ben. So if you're playing as young Ben Tennyson, your fighting skills are kind of weak in your human form, but you also have different skills compared to your older teenage self from Alien Force. And playing as young Ben, you would have a weapon wheel of aliens that you can turn into, only 10. Because classic Ben does get other aliens in the original series, you do have the ability to swap certain aliens out. Or certain aliens will be swapped out automatically when you lose them when playing through the story mode, where like in the show, you would lose access to Ghost Freak and then you would get another alien like Cannonbolt. And Ben 10 Classic is the only one that has a tried and true weapon wheel of aliens that would be an advanced version of Finn's sword weapon wheel from LEGO Dimensions. And I'll get more into this a little bit later when I talk about the gameplay aspects, but I will say the other versions of Ben 10 would have different variants of his transformations from the original series. But moving away from Ben to Gwen, it would be a similar concept, but a little bit different for her particular character, where I would lean into some gameplay aspects from LEGO Harry Potter, but also LEGO Marvel Superheroes 1, where playing as young Gwen at first is like playing a civilian character. All she does have is the ability to throw punches and kicks that are very much karate-esque. But also, because she's a smart character, she does have the ability to help solve puzzles and do specific other things. Similar to Hermione Hermione Granger in LEGO Harry Potter, and also Reed Richards and some of the smart characters in LEGO Marvel Superheroes. But later on, when she inevitably gets Charmcaster's spellbook, she does unlock a bit of a mana/magic system, where similar to LEGO Harry Potter, young Gwen starts to learn how to use certain spells, and she can be incredibly useful for certain environmental puzzles, but also for combat, where Gwen would have some basic attacks, but also a spell wheel. But older versions of Gwen would be different variations of this concept. For instance, the LEGO version of Alien Force Gwen Tennyson would push the alien attributes along with the magic. So she would have certain anodite powers and also would unlock an anodite transformation. But moving away from Gwen to, well, Kevin 11, just like Ben Tennyson and Gwen, young Kevin would have his absorption ability, where he can obviously absorb electricity and also certain various energies, and later on matter, but he would also have access to mutant transformations. First having the slight monstrous fusions between him and Ben's aliens, then having the outright copies of Ben's aliens, and then his final mutant form. Older versions of Kevin would be slightly similar. As for Grandpa Max and a couple other characters, some of them would have abilities that would call back to the show. Because Grandpa Max doesn't have too many powers or abilities, he obviously would be more of a shooter character. And when it comes to the other side characters, we would see different variations from the different versions of Ben 10, like Cooper, Lula from Alien Force, and so on. But moving away from the characters to the overall story of this game, we would have two different options. Scratch that, technically three, because I did come up with a new idea for the story while editing. This third story idea takes a bit of inspiration from Ben 10 Classic, where Ben and Gwen get trapped inside a video game, but for this LEGO game, it would be Ben getting trapped inside a LEGO version of his reality where he's playing through the events of his life. But to do that, you would actually have to have a real version of Ben, and I don't think this would work. One of the other two story concepts would be similar to Star Wars The Skywalker Saga or LEGO Harry Potter, where it would be a mixed match of the Ben 10 timeline, but in LEGO form. Similar to both Harry Potter and Star Wars, where you played it in episode or book order, this would be something slightly similar, where you would be playing the first bits of the game from the classic series with the road trip with Grandpa Max, which would be our version of episode 1, and the next half of the game, or our episode 2, so to speak, would be Alien Force / Ultimate Alien. And the last bits of the game, our episode 3, so to speak, would be the finale bits from Omniverse and also a little bit of some new stuff from Ben 10K. My final story pitch is an original story, but it also fuses the previous idea of being able to play through the different events in Ben's timeline, like his origin and certain bits from the classic series and some stuff from Ultimate Alien and Alien Force and Omniverse, but also having some original stuff to go with this plot as well. So we would have to have a villain that could do that. So borrowing a little bit from LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2 with Kang and also LEGO Dimensions with its villain, we can do something with time travel and also alternate dimensions to make the original story aspect of this game work a lot better. And it wouldn't be in the realm of impossibility because we have seen it in Ben 10 before. And we can use a villain that could actually work well with that concept. Similar to 5 years later, we can use Eon or maybe one of the villains from Omniverse, or make a brand new LEGO Ben 10 villain. Who knows? If you guys have any story ideas, let me know in the comments down below. But moving on, let's get into the LEGO Ben 10 gameplay section of the video, which you guys have probably been waiting for. While I have talked a little bit about Ben, Gwen, and Kevin's gameplay, but I want to give you guys a little bit more of the vision of how I see each character's gameplay style working out. I might as well start off with Ben himself yet again, and I'll get into other gameplay aspects later. Let's start off with the version of Ben we all know, Ben 10 Classic. Hero time! Young Ben, pre-Omnitrix, would play very similar to Dudley from LEGO Harry Potter, not really being super strong, and his combat abilities are just basic punches, swinging wildly, and kicks as well. But he isn't really a smart character, so he's not very good with puzzles, but he is very agile and does have good dodging. He does have a ranged ability, being able to use a slingshot like Bart Simpson from LEGO Dimensions. Ben obviously isn't incredibly acrobatic, but he does have a little bit of a double jump, but it's not very powerful and sometimes can be utilized, but it's not the greatest for every scenario. Also, Ben has a skateboard that he can equip with his weapon wheel that can boost his movement speed. And because Ben loves Sumo Slammer, I did want to give him a slight ability that calls back to that. Maybe something he can do with puzzles, but also in combat. I don't really know, but his running speed is incredibly slow, especially because he has little legs at this age. But he is somewhat fast, but it's better to use your skateboard to get around a little bit quicker. But when he does get the Omnitrix, some of his abilities slightly change. For instance, in his human form, his fighting style slightly changes to become a little bit more precise. Also, certain aspects of his gameplay we would pull from the Protector of Earth video game and other Ben 10 games as well. Like I stated previously, Ben would have a version of Finn's weapon wheel with 10 slots instead of 8. While I'm not the biggest fan of weapon wheels as a whole, despite LEGO using them in the past with previous games, with the character system of LEGO Dimensions, the spell system of LEGO Harry Potter, and the suit system of LEGO Batman, and other various games have used weapon wheels as well, along with Ben 10 games of the past, which isn't a bad thing. Despite them being a bit overused, it was how they were used which was the problem. Especially when it comes to older Ben 10 games, with the aliens not having a whole lot of variety to their attacks and also their abilities as well, where most of the aliens felt very stiff to play as, while they had unique gameplay attributes that kind of felt a bit samey. And the whole point of having these various aliens is that they're meant to be used as an arsenal, where some are good for this and some are good for that. Not just on a puzzle front, but also on an enemy front as well, where it is better to switch between your aliens because some are better to use on certain enemies, giving us a reason to switch between different aliens, which the older games really didn't have. But this LEGO Ben 10 game would fix that issue. Also, it would be very similar to the sword wheel, where each one can be used not only in combat, but also for certain puzzles, for each variant of Ben 10. Since we're using Ben 10 Classic as an example, let's go through some of his aliens first. Starting with Ben's first transformation, the Fire Slinger himself, Heat Blast. While Ben 10 would have a plethora of aliens, and some of them would be fire-based, like Swamp Fire, while that particular alien does have fire-based powers, he's more plant-themed. While Heat Blast, on the other hand, is purely fire-based in his abilities, but also when it comes down to his attacks and powers. And looking closer at his video game debuts, and also some of his abilities in the show, I wanted to make sure this lovable Pirate Knight in LEGO form worked very well. So I had to get a little bit creative when translating some of his abilities into LEGO, taking a bit of inspiration from Johnny Storm from LEGO Marvel Super Heroes 1, and also some other fire-based characters that we've seen from LEGO in the past. Starting things off with his combat and ranged abilities, he has basic attacks that have a fiery punch to them. He also has the ability to shoot out his fire as well, where he can shoot it in a beam or a wave, or even customize the shape of his fire, similar to Pyro from the X-Men or Green Lantern from the original LEGO Batman 3 in certain scenarios. While Heat Blast is immune to fire-based attacks and damage, he can walk through flames, similar to Robin in his toxic waste suit in LEGO Batman 3 or Captain America when he uses his shield. But sometimes you do have the ability to absorb all the fire that you're walking through as Heat Blast. And not just when walking through certain bits of fire, you do have the ability to absorb fire sometimes as well. Also, similar to the Protector of Earth video game, you can make heat funnels as well, and Heat Blast does have an external fire double jump and also the ability to somewhat hover or fly with flying on a rock, which is a pretty cool iconic ability, and I wanted to keep it, but I also wanted to tweak this overall concept a little bit as well. When it comes to the damage that Heat Blast can take, on the other hand, some attacks can damage him, and obviously he is immune to anything heat related, but when it comes to water or cold related, he can take damage. Obviously, you can use him to melt gold objects or gold bits of armor for certain enemies, and he's kind of a versatile character where he's good at dealing damage, but he's also good with his ranged and other attacks, but sometimes he can be a bit weak with some of his weaknesses, with him being purely fire-based and him not really having a whole lot of defense. And speaking of defense, let's actually get into another alien who's good in this regard, Diamond Head. Diamond Head will have some of his powers from the show, like his ability to shoot out projectiles. His melee combat will allow him to shift his arms into different melee weaponry, like Kevin 11, but diamond only. He can also use his diamond attacks for defensive measures as well, like the ability to make shields, reflect energy, and also being able to summon diamonds to make certain constructs similar to Green Lantern, and also similar to Killer Frost and Lego Frozone, he has the ability to skate on his diamond pathway in the air. He's also able to get himself in the air by slamming his hand on the ground and creating a bit of a diamond block upward, which you can choose to jump off of and then do a skate in the air, or you can use it as a way of getting the high ground and attack enemies from above with projectiles or slamming on the ground. And to make Diamond Head a little bit interesting, you can use your up, down, left, or right on the controller, similar to the gadget button in Lego Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, as a way of changing up your form, so to speak, similar to Ghost of Tsushima in a way, where you can change up aspects of his gameplay style. Similar to Finn's sword wheel in Lego Dimensions, you can change up certain aspects of his melee combat, but also his range. It'd be a little tricky, but when it comes to your range, you can change out how you shoot out the diamonds a little bit, or what type of diamonds you're shooting out when it comes to your ranged combat. And as for your melee combat, you would be switching up your styles from hands to blades to something else to something else. Think of this working similar to Jedi Survivor's stance system, but for Diamond Head in some aspects. But in Lego, obviously. Also, Diamond Head can take damage, but he is a little bit tough to actually break down. He does have mild regeneration in Lego, but, you know, he still can die, so he's not invulnerable. While he can do massive amounts of damage, I actually like pushing his defense angle a little bit more compared to someone like Heat Blast. While he doesn't have the best traversal, he is still fun to use in my eyes, compared to some of Ben's other aliens, one in particular who can't even see. And speaking of, let's actually get into that one with Wild Mutt. Now, when it comes to Wild Mutt's abilities, I had to get relatively creative compared to Diamond Head and also Heat Blast, because what we do see of Wild Mutt's abilities, he's practically like a dog, and a saber-toothed tiger, with his teeth and claws, but with massive differences that make him absolutely alien. Of course, he can't talk like other aliens, and despite the creators giving Ultimate Wild Mutt the ability to talk, which does not count and does not need to exist. But regardless, it was incredibly tricky for me to actually come up with unique ideas and gameplay approaches to Lego Wild Mutt's gameplay. What would actually make you play as him? What would be his core strength? That would make him fun to play as, because when looking at Heat Blast, he's very versatile, but he leans more to the offensive side of things. The same for Diamond Head. While he does have a good offense, he leans more into his defense. So it got me thinking, what exactly does Wild Mutt bring to the table? And when looking closer at Wild Mutt's character in the games, but also in the show, he has very good agility, but he's also very vicious with his melee, tearing robots and enemies apart with his claws. Despite him not having the ability to see, he has a bit of a radar sense to tell where things are, and can dodge out of the way at the very last moment. And like a bloodhound, he's very good at tracking things as well, in various senses, and I feel like that's something we could utilize. And going back and looking at other different Lego games for what I could do for his abilities, I settled on the idea of making him a middle-ranged character, better at tracking with some good speed to him, but better at close-ranged combat. While he doesn't have perfect defense like Diamond Head, he makes up for that with his agility and his ability to dodge fire, with his radar sense. Being very good to get in close to do devastating melee attacks, but also being good to gain a distance when being overwhelmed as well. Also, I would give Wild Mutt two different forms of lock-on. To get to enemies, on the ground you would have a lock-on charge, which you can choose to charge into enemies like a rhinoceros, but sometimes if you lock on to multiple objects, you can go from a shoulder charge to actual pouncing. But the other form of lock-on is pouncing, because if you're on a wall or in the air, you can choose to pounce on a plethora of enemies. Or if you you lock onto certain walls, you can choose to pounce onto those walls as Wild Mutt, making the shoulder charge lock on only for on the ground. And speaking of being off the ground, his agility would be something that we would focus on a little bit. Similar to Natasha Romanoff or Robin, you can actually use Wild Mutt as your acrobatic character, where he has the ability to launch onto different poles, and sometimes a brand new thing, pulling a little bit from Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, to run on the side of certain buildings and walls. Also, Wild Mutt would have a good double jump that he can use, but also pulling a mechanic from LEGO Marvel Superheroes 1 with Wolverine and also Spider-Man, he would have a similar Spidey sense type of ability. Not just in combat to warn him against danger, but also the ability to track certain things similar to Wolverine, but also the ability to use his senses to reveal hidden things in the environment to help you out. He would also have his claw switches that he can activate as well, similar to Wolverine, and also similar to Captain America in LEGO Marvel Superheroes 1, where he can throw his shield and activate a switch to help you out. I wanted to pull a similar mechanic with Wild Mutt, despite him not having a projectile to do so. So I figured you can actually pounce over to these types of switches to activate them. Also, pulling a little bit from some of the LEGO Harry Potter games with animal characters, we can pull some similar mechanics with Wild Mutt in this LEGO Benton game as well. Also, similar to this animation, Wild Mutt's combat would mix together his agility, his claws, and also his mouth and fangs to take out enemies. And because Ben 10 has a plethora of aliens from the classic series, and I don't want to cover every single one of them along with aliens from the sequel series, because that would make this video twice as long, and I don't think every single one of you would want that. Unless you guys do, which you can let me know in the comments. And I might make a sequel video covering over info that I didn't get a chance to talk about, along with my ideas for the other aliens. But to give you a brief rundown of some of the other aliens, starting with Forearms, obviously he would play very similar to the Hulk or Mr. Incredible, having the ability to pick up rubble and throw it, also a thunderclap. With his forearms, he obviously would be very good at melee combat. Also, similar to LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2, he would have a super jump. Also, if you are in the air after a super jump and you hit a building, you do have the ability to climb up it. Also, there would be some other gameplay mechanics, pulling a little bit from other LEGO games with strong characters like the Hulk. As for Accelerate, I would pull a little bit from LEGO Marvel Avengers. By holding circle in the open world, you can run up buildings and on water. Also, his combat, like in this animation, would be super fast. He would have the ability to slow down time, and he would have a racetrack ability similar to Dash from LEGO Incredibles. He can also run in a circle around an enemy to create a brief whirlwind or cyclone. I don't really know what the term would be. And also, he would have some other abilities pulling from the show, as you can see on screen, and he would be a little bit different than Fast Track. As for some of the other classic aliens like Grey Matter and Ghost Freak and a plethora of others, Grey Matter would have an ability similar to LEGO DC supervillains to go into small spaces and flip switches, and also he can help out with very intelligent puzzles and a plethora of other things. But before I move on, you can see on screen some of the sketches for some of the abilities for the aliens of the classic series and also the sequel series before I move on. So if you want to pause the video, look at the sketches, and read the bits of info, you can, because I did try to give you guys a good idea of some of the abilities for these said aliens. But moving away from Ben Tennyson and his plethora of aliens to his cousin Gwendolyn. While I did previously give you guys a basic idea of some elements of her gameplay, I wanted to go more in depth about it, because I did have a plethora of ideas when it comes to Gwen 10 Classic, where in some facets she would mirror her cousin's gameplay, having a weapon wheel of her own. While Ben has access to his aliens to compensate his weapon wheel, Gwen on the other hand does not, but she does have something to compensate that, and that is spells. And later on, tapping into her alien heritage, she would have Anodite and also mana attacks, which some elements of Gwen Tennyson's gameplay I wanted to pull a little bit from LEGO Harry Potter, along with Jean Grey from LEGO Marvel Superheroes, along with Magneto, and a couple other LEGO abilities from other characters, along with Star Sapphire / Green Lantern from LEGO Batman. So, like I stated previously, her combat at first would be karate based, similar to the combat system of LEGO Batman Legends of the Dark Knight. It would be very precise compared to her cousin Ben's combat, which is very sloppy, but just like his, she actually starts to develop a little bit more as the game goes on, which you would see the LEGO animation of Gwen's combat slightly change when she gets spells, and she would start to incorporate them into her karate combat. As for the spells, some of them would call back to the show itself, and similar to LEGO Harry Potter, each one could be utilized not only in your combat, but also with puzzles as well, like Iscindia Absalom, Turbo, and a plethora of others, with a plethora of uses that mirror Ben's aliens. But older versions of LEGO Gwen Tennyson obviously would lean away from spells like Alien Force Gwen Tennyson and start to lean into her alien heritage with the mana-based attacks and also her anodite powers. Obviously, Omniverse Gwen Tennyson would be a middle ground of both, and the older versions of Gwen Tennyson would have some of the abilities that she had from the show, like being able to walk on light platforms or create energy blasts, and sometimes even fly. But moving on, Kevin in some ways will be a better version of Absorbing Man from LEGO Marvel Superheroes. Obviously, like before, you're able to absorb energy like electricity and a plethora of other things, and you later absorb matter. So in a level, you can sometimes grab a certain object and you can absorb that, and you are able to use it for however long you want to. Kevin, similar to Arthur Weasley in his older state, will be able to fix things. His melee combat will allow him to use his fists, but also customize his hands into weaponry, and sometimes you are able to use enemies' weaponry like blasters and a plethora of other things as well. A character like Grandpa Max is more shooter focused, while he does have the ability to fix things like Arthur Weasley and a later iteration of Kevin. He can also use plumber terminals to solve different puzzles, and also other weapons that he can use with his weapon wheel. I didn't have too many ideas for Grandpa Max's gameplay, so if you got any of your own, let me know in the comments. Certain other characters like Pierce, Manny, and other characters would more than likely fuse elements from Benton's aliens, but also some other attributes as well, cause a character like Manny obviously is like forearms, but he also uses weapons like blasters and spears to help him out in combat, so a lot of the characters would have certain things that would be unique to them, but also other things that would pull from other characters as well. As for the enemies of this game, you would have the Forever Knights with different variations of them, different variations of alien and human criminals, some magic-themed enemies from Ledger Domain, obviously. We can also have the Hybrid as an enemy faction in this game, along with some of the other enemy factions from later series, like Omniverse with Tea's people and also Luna's, along with some other different factions, to really push the enemy variety in a lot of ways. As for my ideas for the open world of this game, I'll be fusing some ideas from the other LEGO games with their open worlds for this one. I'll be taking a bit of notes from LEGO The Incredibles and also the LEGO Batman games. In some facets, pulling a little bit from LEGO Batman 3 Beyond Gotham with how it handles the idea of space travel. So the main hub world that you'll be playing in is Bellwood, Benton's hometown and an iconic location to the Benton mythos. It would be a slightly smaller map, being fairly similar to the Gotham map of LEGO Batman 2, fused with elements from the Incredibles map, and also actually Batman Arkham City's map, which is obviously a non-LEGO game map, but I will be pulling from it, and I'll explain how and why here in a second. Because the open world, I actually wanted it to be a little bit layered, where there is a middle layer, the top layer of high skyscrapers, and a below layer of the underground markets, pulling from Benton Omniverse. Similar to the layered structure of the Arkham City map, where you have tall buildings, rooftops, then you have street level, and then you have the sewers and underground area, with that to explore to add a little bit more complexity to the map design. And with the idea of the Plumber HQ connected to some elements of the underground areas, but also as a main HUD to access certain things as well, where similar to LEGO Marvel's Avengers, you can access mini-maps that are iconic locations to Ben 10, like Mount Rushmore, a subsection of New York and Washington, and a couple other locations, but then you have separate portals that you can unlock through special means to go to the Null Void and also Ledger Domain as well. Similar to the other mini portals, these areas would be very minuscule. They're not going to be too big, but they would capture the overall feel of the certain areas from Ben 10. But also, while you do have the ability to portal to certain mini locations like in LEGO Marvel Avengers, you also also have something similar to LEGO Batman 3 Beyond Gotham, where you have the ability to portal to certain alien planets. To be slightly realistic, you wouldn't have too many alien planets that you can go to. Only certain ones that are iconic to the series that you do go to in the show. That would obviously work for the game, like Galvan Prime and maybe a couple other ones as well. And these would work similar to the mini portal locations that you can go to on Earth, but for space. Also, through the story mode and side missions on other planets or on Earth, you could have iconic boss fights with certain villains from the Ben 10 franchise, like Vilgax, Sascare, and a plethora of others. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, whether you like some of my ideas or how you would do a LEGO Ben 10 video game. Also, some of the credit for some of the images that weren't edited by myself or some of the 3D LEGO Ben 10 characters will be linked in the description to their ArtStation page, and credit will be given where credit is due. Make sure to give some love to the actual creator of some of these models on ArtStation, and whatever links I can get into the description of this video or in the comments, despite not having special features, thanks YouTube, I still wanted to provide links to some of the creators that made some of these images. So please check them out and make sure to like this video if you did enjoy and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It does actually help out the channel and me, and make sure to comment as well, along with hitting that bell notification button to be notified whether I upload. Make sure to check out some of the other videos on screen. Have a good rest of your guys' and gals' night, morning, afternoon, or whatever it is for you in the world. Peace out. See you next time. Bye-bye.